So the major patch for Guilty Gear Strive dropped a little over a week ago now, and while there would be any mixed opinions about such a major change to the game, this season I think probably had the worst reception I've seen from a major update in this game so far, and also in the shortest amount of time. So first off, you might be like, what happened? So maybe you scroll on YouTube, maybe you scroll on Twitter or whatever, and you see a lot of people complaining. And if you've been following this game, usually the only really big shakeups they do to the game are at the beginning of a season. And then based on what they see from both feedback and also how the game actually plays out, later they do some small patches, either 3 to 6 months after the first patch. Now the thing is, every season of Guilty Gear Strive I think kind of has a theme or something that the dev team's kind of aiming for the future of the game. So the big thing about season 2 was strengthening a couple of system mechanics. So namely positive bonus, which wasn't really that huge a part of the game in season 1, along with fast room and cancel, which didn't really see too much use either. On top of that, they gave characters more Gatling options in the air, opening up new combo opportunities. Season 3, rather than strengthening existing system mechanics, actually added 2 new major ones, Wild Assault and the Flex Shield. Wild Assault was found to be so strong after around a month or so that pretty much all of the major changes in Season 3 was around that single mechanic. I myself have made a bunch of videos about Wild Assault in the past year. So, Season 4 didn't really add any system mechanics or really revise anything to encourage people to use it more. If anything, the main thing that changed system-wide was that, surprisingly, everyone actually has more HP now. And from reading the patch notes and also listening to what the devs said about what they're trying to do, a big focus about this version of the game is on character identity. What do they actually mean by this? Personally, I think it comes from how people talk about specific characters. So for example, let's take Ramethal. So her changes aside, as in like how good is she actually right now, it was really common to hear things like, what is the point of playing Testament where you could just play Ramethal instead? There are other pairs of characters that have these why would you play this when you could just play this aspect. And in the case of Ramethal and Testament, if you think about it, a major phase of their game, like when they're rushing you down the corner, is very similar. They loop advantageous projectiles, and people have to guess around it between like jumping or mashing 6P or all sorts of responses. But Ram could do it kind of easier, kind of safer, there's less steps to it. And Ram tended to have better conversion than Testament, especially with the addition of Wild Assault. They have addressed this with Testament's general combos, especially in the more recent patch they had in July. But the similarities cannot be denied. So if the rework of Ramethal was to have people be like, oh, Ram does this, and so you do this thing, and then Testament does that, and so you do that thing, then from that perspective, the way they changed her kind of makes sense. So I really feel like people are mad because you can see the ideas are going for, but the implementation is not up to people's standards. So in Ram's case, what they decided to do is she can't pick up her swords anymore, which means she lost her old style of looping offense, especially in the corner. It seems like they were worried that she wouldn't be able to keep some type of offense going, so they changed her S sword, which was not super commonly used outside of combos. The pain point with these moves are, not only are they heavily advantageous guard crush moves, but they likely accidentally made it so the swords don't go away on block or hit. And this one is a major pain point because it's constantly one that they fix in the game. She had this on launch and they took it away, and then Gold Lewis had this in season 2.0 and they took it away. And if you've been playing this game, especially since launch, it's very rare that they actually revert changes. They usually try to just like move things around kind of and keep what they're trying to do in the game. But on top of that, they also seem to give this character things that she had before and people were like, this is too good, so they nerfed it. A big example is with her JH. So on launch, her JH was this amazing move, huge, disjoint, reaches really far down. They nerfed it over time and the move was still fine for its purpose. Like a lot of people used it in like block strings as a way to kind of vary up their offense. But now it's active until it reaches the ground, and its disjoint is an incredibly difficult move to use. And even if you're waiting for it, you have to deal with her air flip kick being buffed, so it has like no recovery. So it's actually really hard to like anti-air ram, which is pretty reminiscent of her in season 1. And she's not the only character with changes that people are like, dude, like what are they even thinking? But I definitely think that Ramathal and Gold Lewis are probably the two main clear ones that a lot of people are like, dude, what did they do? In my opinion, there's a couple of other characters that I think are secretly going under the radar because of how extreme Ram and Gold Lewis are, but that's for another video. So character stuff aside, we would expect people to complain about characters and things like that. Again, not everyone's going to be happy with such a major type of patch. I mean, myself included, I got really mad at the last patch that they did, the 3.2 patch, which wasn't even really a huge patch in the game. It was actually one of the small patches that they used to kind of like tweak the game balance and tweak what they're kind of do for the system, which was the main reason why I was so mad. I was like, wow, you fixed all this stuff for everybody but like 2 characters. This kind of sucks. While acknowledging that the game was, you know, kind of more balanced and more characters are doing what they're supposed to do. The other big thing that people had was how buggy the game feels right now. So normally when we get patch notes, when you're reading through the notes, you'll read something about a character, about some bug they had that you'll be like, dude, like what is that? Or at least I find this happening a lot when I read through patch notes. So some things I'm like, oh yeah, there's that thing. But most of the time I'm like, oh wow, like what is this even talking about? But right now the game has a bunch of like clear, pretty visible bugs or also oversights. So for example, and I included this in the visual guide to the season 4 changes, Gold Lewis has a bug that some people have been going around calling, oh, it's counterplay to see somebody do it on stream. But if you burst his Gatling gun when you wall splat, this happens. Another oversight comes from one of the characters I'm probably the most known for, right? So Baiken. A lot of people were like, what is this Baiken gun change? Like, who cares? Like, we're just gonna read over this. But if you paid attention to her in 3, I pretty much decided to optimize her entire game plan around these damage bugs because I thought it was pretty much like the only way I could see myself winning with the character in a reasonably reliable way, which I think did work out for that season. She had 2 bugs. So one was one that they tried to address last year, which is the clean hit gunshot that we called it. All they did in season 3.1 was really they just tried to move it so that people wouldn't be able to hit it easily, but in the end it made it more accessible in some ways in the corner in exchange for not being able to do it mid-screen. The other was that there was a damage scaling bug using PRCs for like mashing PRC, and it actually significantly affects the damage, and depending on the situation it would be like your best option. And with the buffs to positive bonus in season 3.1, this PRC bug actually became quite accessible. So they did actually really remove the PRC bug, but the corner clean hit stuff is all in, just like the last 2 patches. So okay, they tried and they missed, and that happened with the gun. But there's also things like Kai randomly having an infinite now. Like, I don't think it's anywhere near practical, but it's the type of thing you'd expect to be taken out of the game. There are other characters who had infinites in this game, for example, but that was way back on launch, like Giovanna's infinite. So essentially, I think things like this make people feel like the game was not thoroughly tested, despite it seeming like they were taking so much more time with Season 4.0. This is the latest they've released a season in the game so far. The launch version of Strive came out in June, and then Season 2 came out pretty much a year later. Season 3 came out a little bit more than a year later in August, and now Season 4 just came out in Halloween. And that's on top of not really getting too much communication about what's going on outside of, hey, it's coming, don't worry, until around the middle of October. Some people think they're not using their resources well or something. I'm not really a games industry person. That's not my place to comment on. There are other people that are like, they're using all their resources on making a new game or something, so they don't really care, and they're just rushing shit out. Again, not my place to know, but all these bugs make people think these things more, pretty much. Now the thing is, I do think the concept behind this patch is a good idea, and honestly, quite honestly, I've been having a lot of fun with this patch. May got some fun stuff with manual controlling her dolphin hop, and Baiken got almost all the things I wanted her to actually get, and I am planning on making a video about what's going on with Season 4 Baiken, just like I did with Season 3, and like my thoughts of like what's gonna happen with the character. But I'm pretty pleased with her right now, I cannot lie. A lot of the things they did with characters kind of had interesting ideas, or like lets you use things that you didn't get to use as much, or lets you explore new ideas with the character, which I think is really good. Also trying to do things where, like, another example, let's say, is how people are like, why would you play Milia when you could just play Chip, for example? So having Chip have a new move like Tightrope, where it makes him very different than Milia to everybody, not just high level players, I think is a good idea. So I do see the vision. They did announce, maybe as of me recording this a couple of hours ago, that they're going to do a quick fix patch. So a patch this month, we don't know when yet, with a lot of people's complaints and bugs being addressed. So we'll see how this goes. I do feel like I also recall them saying they're trying to do more small patches in Season 4. So I do think the outlook of the game is good, even if they didn't really start too hot with Season 4. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you're interested in Guilty Gear coaching, I do coaching over on Medify at medify.gg/@LordKnight. I stream mostly every day on weekdays on twitch.tv/LordKnight. That's where we do scrub quotes, confessions, and all sorts of other like stream things, in addition to just like hanging out in LK Chronicles. If you don't know what LK Chronicles is, that's my second channel. Let's say not stream highlights. Just go check it out if you feel like it. Like and subscribe if you guys feel like it, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.